Over tonight, the race for president gets serious.
That's right. It is the presidential debate between President Trump and Joe Biden, and it's playing out right here on Fox. We are happy to have Professor Stephen Maynard Caliendo from North Central College this morning join us to talk a little bit more about this. Hey, thank you so much for coming on, giving us your perspective.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get started here. What are the big things that you think people should be keeping their eyes tuned out for tonight during the debate?
The first debate's a very exciting one because it gives us an opportunity to see the two candidates together on the same stage, interacting with each other. This format in particular will have an opportunity for the candidates to interact with one another and to show that they can that they have what it takes to become president. And so we have one person, of course, who's running for re-election. We've seen his performance in the White House for the last 4 years. Joe Biden's not somebody who needs to introduce himself to the country for the most part. He's a known entity, was vice president for 8 years, but he also needs to show that he can do the job. And so it'll be interesting to see the demeanor, even more so, I think, than some of the substance that we'll have tonight.
Well, it certainly could be argued this is must-see TV. We know the president has asked for a drug test of Mr. Biden because he believes that his performances that have been solid have been perhaps enhanced by some sort of drug. We know that the president has already called out Chris Wallace, saying that he's not going to ask Joe Biden tough questions because he is a tool of the liberal left. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your excitement level this morning?
Oh, I'm a political scientist who studies American politics. My excitement level's a 12. But it's really about, figuring out what the emotional basis is going to be for these appeals. And where the candidates are going to come on that level. It's really less about the policy arguments. We haven't had a lot of policy discussion for the most part in this campaign. And I, for better or for worse, I think a lot of policy geeks would rather have substance, and I think a good argument can be made for that. But elections have always been about emotions, and I think most of what we're going to see tonight, it will be based on that.
You could say this is probably one of the most important elections of our lifetime. How would you prepare for something like this? Because I have to imagine both sides have to practice because they don't know what's going to be lobbed at them.
That's correct. Although both of them have a lot of debate experience, and so if you use a sports metaphor, there's lots of tape on the other one. So I think it certainly both of them would have been having their staff people look at tapes of how the other performed in debates, the kind of arguments that they tended to make, and then also have people stand in and practice as if they're the opposing candidate. That's a very common tactic, and I'm certain that both campaigns used that over the last few days.
Tonight's moderator, of course, is Chris Wallace, who has a sterling reputation for fairness. And yet he's taken a little bit of heat, Professor, because he has said he's not going to fact check anything that is said. What, in your mind, is the role of the moderator?
The role of the moderator is to press the candidates when there's a belief that they're trying to get around a particular question, trying to get them to answer the question directly. Fact-checking is almost impossible to do during real time. And it is true that some questions could come in that would contrast previous statements from one of the candidates to something they may say tonight on the stage. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of that from Chris Wallace, but it's not going to be that every time a candidate makes a statement that Chris Wallace has a binder beside him that he's able to flip through and find statistics or other evidence to back up or contrast or push against what the other candidate said. Fact checking almost always comes after the debate's over. Sometimes it comes in real time through social media, so folks can keep an eye on that. But Chris Wallace doesn't have a lot of time. It's a 90-minute debate. There are 6 15-minute segments in which that each candidate gets a chance to answer as well as interact with one another. And so those 15-minute segments are going to move by very quickly. It's going to go fast.
All right. Well, North Central College's Professor Stephen Maynard Caliendo, thank you so much for your perspective this morning.
It's great to see you both. Thanks again.
And you as well. Thank you, sir.